Good afternoon, or good evening, or somewhere in the world it's still the morning time. So much love to you wherever you are in space, in physical space, and consciousness. We're happy to be here with you this afternoon. We have a very special guest waiting in the wings, and we're going to bring him up very shortly so he can have some conversation with us. In the meantime, while I take care of some housekeeping, I want to ask y'all to like and share the video. Subscribe to our YouTube channel as well because you can always stay tuned that way to what we have going on in terms of our attempt to just reflect the beauty of life. It's really that simple. We've been told so much about all the ugliness that happens in the world or in people's minds. That's really where the root of it is, or, you know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Blah, blah, blah. Y'all hear about that all day long. What we sometimes forget, and it could be argued that the focus on the so-called ugliness, especially by the mass media, is precisely so that we can forget all the good that's happening in the world. The goodness is on the rise, y'all. There's so many beautiful things happening. There's so many beautiful people really doing a wonderful job in their own way of supporting life, of really reflecting life, which is ultimately going to produce some form of peace, some form of joy, some form of power. And so that's what we focus here, lunching and learning. So we have Dr. Baba. I was saying Baba and Doctor at the same time. So I said Doctor. Dr. Mark Armstrong on the line with us, and he's going to be tuning in with us in a minute. In the meantime, I want to ask y'all to like and share the video. Let's get the family in the house so that we can do what we do. Check this out. This is our opening meditation coming from Sweet Honey in the Rock. It's our theme music this afternoon as we lunching and learning.
When you're thirsty and dry, I woke up morning in a crowded, sick place, surrounded by evil, protected by grace. There were these hands, hundreds reaching for me. They knew exactly who and what I should be. Each way I turn, stronger than the last. Which would I choose, and how could I pass? Then I would whisper, from deep inside me. Then I would whisper, from deep inside me. As I gave power to the sound of my own voice, a way broke before me. I followed my choice. I walked along the way other lives had been, till I came to what seemed like an end. Again, these hands, these things bending for me. They knew exactly who and what I should be. Again, the whisper, keeping me steady. Again, the whisper, way. Others toil beside me for a justice new day. Still I have found love most of the time. Oh, and this sweet freedom struggle of mine. Still I have found love most of the time. Oh, and this sweet freedom struggle of mine. Saved by the whisper, be still, be still, be still, keeping me steady. Be still, be still, be still, saved by the whisper, be still, be still, keeping me steady. Be still, be still. Yesterday I stumbled around the bend. I saw you standing, you reached me your hand. I've seen you before, oh, many a time. Why, your life had plowed the road right next to mine. Now you make the sun, rise in my sky. You rock my cradle, honey. You make me fly. You keep me company. Now you make the sun, rise in my sky. You rock my cradle, honey. You make me fly. You keep me company. I'll be your shelter. I'll be your land. I'll be your everything. I'll be your friend. I'll be your water when you're thirsty and
Yes, indeed. Sweet Honey in the Rock say, I'll be your water. I don't know what kind of person could even think about refusing such a beautiful invitation. Sweet Honey in the Rock. Yeah, we give thanks for that musical group of healers that really set the stage for so many important conversations. And that in itself is a testament to who they are, what they do. You know what I mean? We could be talking about, we could be getting ready to go out on a mission. And they gave us a song like This May Be the Last Time. Some of our elders, especially Baba Mukasa, used to talk about how they would be going into the trenches and these civil rights missions and singing that song as they hold in hands. People of deep courage and conviction. We could be talking about going into the spirit realm, which is, of course, nothing separate from what we're talking about here and now. Many different things we could be talking about, and Sweet Honey in the Rock gives us the soundtrack to our evolution. I want to bring up our very special guest so that we can get started with the conversation. His name is Dr. Mark Armstrong. He's a naturopathic practitioner in Atlanta, Georgia. He really, his work really goes before itself in terms of what is now, being seen as, a kind of a new age revolution. And, every generation has these cycles and circles that it experiences in terms of thought, in terms of how they really collectively agree to see the world, and part of what has been happening has really focused. A lot of what is happening is really focused on the human anatomy, on the health, our physical body, for obvious reasons. Sickness been a serious thing that people have had to deal with for a long time in this world. And so, opportunities arise when we have challenges. And so, with all of this being said, we're grateful that we have people in our community who are really focused on, as Frantz Fanon said it. That's the best way I can put it. I always think about Frantz Fanon, who said that, every generation must, out of obscure or relative obscurity, make the decision to either fulfill its mission or betray it. So we're grateful to have people in our community in various walks of life who are here to fulfill their mission. Dr. Mark Armstrong began an accelerated teachers training program with Sifu Jeff in 2010. Sifu Jeff states that Mark Armstrong's advanced understanding of many of the principles which are part of this Qigong allowed Mark Armstrong to enter such a program. In early 2012, Dr. Armstrong received the title of Sifu Mark in a traditional altar ceremony performed by Sifu Jeff Larson. Together, Mark and Sifu Jeff seek to share with the world the knowledge, joy, and life-sustaining benefits of floating monk Qigong. And that's just a little excerpt from his bio, where you can, if you check out his website, there's Ahimki.net. You'll get the 411 about, schooling and different things that he has experienced in life to bring him to this point where he is one of our very cherished community healers. So without any further ado, I want to bring him on now. Taking time with us on his day off. Be here. Dr. Armstrong, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to the
Thank you. Thank you so much, Brother Coffee, for the invitation. And to all of our listeners out there, free the land, and to our ancestors, Hotep.
We give thanks. We give thanks. Dr. Mark, we were saying off the line, it's such a joy for me to be having these conversations. I feel like I have the opportunity to let a whole bunch of people in on some meaningful personal conversations that I would be having anyway, whether or not we had this platform and a radio show and all that. So there's so much that I'd like to share, to talk with you about today. As I was preparing for the program, I was just reflecting, one of the great healers of our time, Dr. Laila Africa. Today is actually his birthday, the author of African Holistic Health and all of that.
Yes.
Thinking about the paradigm shifting that's happening, and how often as spectators we enjoy the fruit of people's labor. We always do. All humanity does, whether they know it or not. They're enjoying the fruit of their predecessors' labor. And I'm thinking though about the people. Sometimes our consciousness zooms in on what it must be like for people who bring forth revolutionary information, who push the envelope, who pierce, what I mean?
Yes.
To bring humanity forward. So I want to start there with you, and get a little bit more information about who you are, who is Dr. Mark Armstrong, and what really, maybe way we can hear some anecdotes that really bring it home to us. What inspired you to see the healer within yourself?
Yes.
What let's take it back as far as we can go. What's your first memory of being conscious of your ability to affect change in any kind of way?
It starts with my grandparents. It starts with my mother and father. They grew up in the South, and so their roots were very close to the earth. My grandfather owned a farm, and he was very connected to the community consciously. And so my mom passed that on to me, and I spent summers with my grandfather. So I was constantly learning about roots and herbs and white lightning,
mm,
elixirs, homeopathics. And he practiced a religion called Ifa.
mm.
So I knew about deities. I knew about the power of elevating the deities and an altar, ancestral altar. Those were the things that I observed. That was my appreciation because some of those things that he did actually worked on my health.
This is your grandfather?
My grandfather, Oliver Willis, yes,
Where was this? What part of the?
in Pineapple, Alabama.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I mean, we still have land down there called Willis's Quarters. We bought the land and we sold pulpwood to Birmingham, Alabama newspaper. So we come from that mighty beginning, and that goes back generations. And so my family has always been conscious that way and
Mm,
serving that way.
mm,
And
mm, mm.
I'm just part of the lineage, part of the tribe.
Wow. You just opened up a whole new thing for me. I didn't know that. So, Dr. Mark, obviously, growing up in a, well, maybe not so, I want to ask instead of assume, what your grandfather practiced, and maybe was that unique? First of all, the first question, was that unique to your environment? Was he like the only person that you're aware of as a child coming up that was practicing this kind of communion with nature in a way that would become medicine making and all that?
Mhm.
Or was it something that was more common?
It was he was like the Babalawo of the community. So it's a church community, but they all knew about spirituality. So they kind of hid it in church, but that's not what they practice.
Mm,
So they would go to him for healings and for ritual work and for clearings. Church people, even the pastor. But it was a very interesting experience as a kid watching that because I grew up in California where church was so big
mm,
and and religious, but down in the South it was spiritual and it was church was practiced in a religious way, but it was spiritual.
mm,
Like they made reference to call and response, and some of the songs came from slavery. All of them came from slavery,
mm,
and they sung a cappella. They had pianists and they had percussionists there, but they preferred the traditional in church.
mm,
And that was like what granddad was doing.
mm, mm,
I
mm,
mean, he would sing to the plants. I don't think he ever went to church until my aunt passed.
mm.
And in church, I saw him do something. He, he, he laid down in the middle of the church and offered a prayer, and everybody received it.
It's at your aunt's funeral.
Yes.
Mm,
I mean, granddad was just unique. And I like the uniqueness because to me that was powerful, that he was tapped into something that was real. And yet, I grew up in church and I saw the power of that. But the pastor had prostate cancer, and my grandfather shook his hand, and the cancer just left. I was like, I want to do that when I grow up. That's what I want to do.
So you had a clear understanding of power, like real power. And you knew it from that time that that was powerful. I mean, you just said, that's what I
Yeah,
want to do.
I knew my stepfather was an associate pastor, so I had a model of like they studied my mother and my father. They were Eastern Stars and Masons.
Yeah.
So I was reading the books and I saw the mystery, but they weren't teaching the mystery. But my grandfather was living
The
in the
mystery. He was living the story.
he
It
was
wasn't
living the
it wasn't
story.
it wasn't a mystery.
He was actualizing it.
He demystified it.
I mean, he could make it rain.
I believe you. I believe you.
He
Wow.
would make it rain. He would make prayers and cultivate the energy, and He'd make it rain.
So when did you move from that cocoon in Alabama and move out to California?
Well, my mom actually is how we got to California. She grew up in the same church when that bombing took place of those little girls. She was supposed to go, but my grandmother didn't get the dress. My grandmother sewed every Sunday and made new clothes for my mom. So that day she just didn't get it done. And my mom was like, okay, we just need to get out of here. But our roots were always in Alabama, but we moved to California. And
You just said something I just can't skip over, Dr. Mark. Your grandmother used to make new clothes for your mother every weekend, every week.
every Sunday.
I just want to pause and just take that in for a minute because in this society where we have come, right now in terms of our modern interaction, that seems to be something that's so remarkable. And at the same time, when you see the public discourse going on right now, which in my opinion is encouraging, you see people reminding about how we used to do for self, do for self, do for self.
Hmm.
Sometimes it just becomes kind of cliche. That's why I wanted to kind of highlight what you just shared. It becomes cliche and it doesn't have any kind of practical, even though it's saying, economics and this and that, it
Hmm.
still seems in the abstract world. But it seems like it starts by just being who we are and
We
really nurturing our ability to provide our basic necessities.
we were real powerful when we work with each other. I mean, someone might have nails and you might have wood, and collectively you would work together and build a house. Someone might have a lot of children and you might have the skills and the knowledge. And so you put the knowledge with the skills and the labor, and we could build barns, we could do anything. I saw those kind of communities as I was growing up, the collective, and how it worked for the whole. So the individuals were less important than the bigger picture.
Indeed. We're talking with Baba Mark Armstrong, and you're tuned into the Ancestral Rock. Y'all might hear me mention Thursday from time to time. I didn't smoke nothing this morning or nothing. It's just that we're taping this for the radio. Right? So
Yeah.
so from time to time y'all might hear me make reference of Thursday. We're on every Thursday from 2 to 4 on WRFG 89.3 on the FM dial. Papa Mark, I feel like we're gonna be zigzag zigging, just going in and out, touching
Yes.
the so-called past and the future and the
Mhm.
present, all in this conversation. So bringing us up to today, I wonder if you had to just kind of give a summary from your perspective as one who is gifted with the quality of allowing people to see their healing potential in themselves, showing people how the body heals itself.
Mhm.
You're very well known for that. If you had to kind of point
Yeah.
to, I don't even want to say like two or three things that's wrong with the world, but more what I want to ask is if you had to summarize the human condition as it relates to our health, how would you do so at this time? You just have to summarize that. We're gonna dig deeper, but I just want a summary for now. Like, what is your main analysis of the condition of the world in general as it relates to our health?
It comes down to our biology of beliefs.
Mm,
To me, it stems from um, our perceptions, because our perceptions are actually controlled by our beliefs. And so we have to actually rewrite our beliefs so that we can rewrite our perception. I mean, we've been told a lot of things that were not really true, and so we act as if those things are real, but those are constructs in the matrix to stop us from really being who we came here to be, which is infinite beings. You're God, I'm God, and that's all there is that consciousness. And so when we can teach people to get back to the truth, that's what my grandfather knew. He didn't think anything other than a oneness with source, with God. And as oneness, you can move mountains. But
Biology of beliefs. I mean, that's powerful.
yeah, the biology of belief is actually dictating our physical health, the biology of how we are showing up. Disease is really related in many ways to our belief system.
Give me an example of what that is like.
Okay,
How that is the reality.
all right. So if one believes that the world is coming to an end and they develop a lot of anxiety around that, that's going to lead to hypertension. It's going to lead to diverticulitis, colitis, irritable bowel. It's going to lead to a lot of digestive issues because your mind is making those issues. They're making the biology that you're living into. If you're worried about finances, then it goes to your back, and that's fear. And that fear could lead to chronic pain. That chronic pain will show up as a sciatic nerve issue. And that sciatic nerve is running all the way down to your feet, which represent moving forward in life. And so if we change that belief, then the body will change. The physiology will change.
So, where did you get this information from? How
Well,
I'm asking for somebody out there
sure.
who is has been programmed. We use that word or taught. We just use that word, not to be disrespectful to anyone.
Yes. Well,
Um, you
some
know,
of it
by
stems,
Western medicine. You know.
some of it stems from a psychotherapist named Carol Truman, who wrote a book called "Feelings Buried Alive Never Die."
Mm.
So she looked at case studies of her clients, and she made notes of their disease, and then talked about some of the emotional things that she gave them, affirmations and scripts to clear them. So that I studied. And then Louise Hay's book, You Can Heal Your Life, that was one of my earliest insights because Louise Hayes had brain cancer and she healed herself by changing her biology, her belief system.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that one. Please name the first one again. I'm going to write it in the chat so people can have a point of reference.
Carol Truman.
Carol Truman.
Yeah, Feelings Buried Alive Never Die. That's a must book because in her book on page 95, she gives a script which we use in our clinic to help people dismantle the programming.
Mm, 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 mm. Feelings buried alive, never die. Now I'm gonna take a while. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say I can imagine how that can relate to, let's just say, African people for a minute.
Yes.
Um, People who, and not just say just I mean yeah, just let's just say first of all, people who are in the diaspora as a result of the transatlantic so-called slave trade. You know.
Yes.
And people who have endured all manner of things. A lot of that, again, is in the public discourse now. People reliving, you know, Jim Crow and all the atrocities, so many of them that have happened to us. What does that look like to a people's physiology, generally speaking? And then we can hone in even on, you know, on certain specific examples. What does that look like to a person's physiology, that a group of people's physiology, when they have endured so much stress?
Depending on their faith and depending upon their consciousness,
Mm.
they tend to loop around the
Mm.
trauma.
Mm. Okay.
So it goes from one trauma to the next. So they're re-stimulated by the trauma.
Well, that's what you mean by loop around. Mm.
Looping, yes.
Help me understand that, please.
Well, if a person is experienced a lot of violence, then that becomes normal for
Mm.
them to be around, violence. And because it's so normal, there's a lot of allowance for that pain and trauma in their life. They don't see it as pain and trauma. That's normal. And so it's normal to have like a certain social consciousness where you care and where you don't care. Uh, those are states of consciousness that we loop around until we elevate out of it. And there's ways that you can elevate out of it, because in some ways the the person that hurt you, you can become that person.
Hmm. So
And
this whole concept of what you resist persists, for instance.
exactly,
What
exactly.
help the lay person understand that, because we have been so. Let me just say, even let's get to our revolutionary heritage,
Hmm.
which has helped us to push the envelope in so many ways. And I wonder if it's good to have some assessment of some of the stories we tell or some of the language we use,
Hmm.
because resistance is known as a huge, a fundamental, a pillar of revolutionary activity. Resistance,
Hmm.
and that's in context. However, I wonder if that's just something that, if it can be dealt with in another way to achieve the prescribed or prescribed to achieve the desired goal of true liberation.
Hmm.
Just the whole concept of resistance. I'd like to kind of dig into that for me.
Sure. Whatever you resist will persist. I think of I think of Jack Johnson. He's like a fighter way before Muhammad Ali,
Hmm.
and yet born in a time of Jim Crow. He was free because he was free in his mind, the way he thought, the way he moved, and because he was congruent in what he knew, like the alignment of what he knew. People understood that. And my grandfather, too, I mean, he was congruent in what he knew. And because he was so rooted in what he knew, people begin to know that's what he knows. So you don't bother him. He's not the one.
Right, right.
you know, uh, he's just simply not the one. You know that. You don't have to tell people.
Mhm.
They understand because the energy that you're moving with is so strong that it doesn't need to convince anybody.
Mhm.
That's where we come from, and it's an alignment that you
The,
operate
the,
in.
the self assurance, not to cut
Yeah,
you. Yeah.
yeah. I grew up in Compton, California, so you have to look people in the eye so you know what their intentions are. When the
Right,
police stop you, you know what the deal is, and
right.
you know they know you're not the one to punk.
Right, 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 right.
They know it.
You
They
know,
can try
Bob,
it.
Bob Marley and them have a song says "Screwface know who for frightened."
Right. That's right.
So
That's
how is it? Help us to understand. You've made it very clear. Help us to understand what happens in our, whether it's our physical reality, the biology of our beliefs, that takes us out of that to a place where we're attempting to prove something. How do we come from people who are so powerful? And this is not just a general question, even though it's been posed a million times. From projects to pyramids. I mean,
mhm.
or pyramids to projects.
Yes.
All this kind of stuff. But what does that look like? Just
It really looks like the number of pieces of information, bytes of information that we are allowing ourselves to know. Like, for example, the conscious mind is able to only process like three things at a time and hold it
mm,
correctly.
mm,
but the subconscious mind could do 40,000 pieces of information per second. So one is like listening and breathing through a McDonald's small straw, and the other is the pipeline of the universe. The pipeline of the universe is the choice.
Clearly.
But you got to get to the subconscious mind. You got to program the subconscious mind. You have to create that reality in your subconscious mind. And you do that when you're sleeping, and you also reinforce it during the day so that it begins to be who you are. Now, prayers do that, chants do that, invoking the spirit does that, libations do that. Uh, just the tea and fruit ceremonies that we do when we elevate our ancestors, feed them, that's locking it in. So it's never like you're without that source because you become the source. That's why people don't bother you.
Because they see the real.
Yeah, it's just it's your perfume, it's your aura.
And even as we say on the street, it's always amazing to me. You say you grew up in Compton, California, so I know you know a little bit about the streets, even if you didn't, weren't a street person, by osmosis,
Oh
right?
yeah.
You
Oh
know,
man,
but
you know,
there's so much wisdom in our street culture. As we say, like real, recognize real. Something you just said a minute ago that took me back to a thought or a commonly used expression. It left my mind again, but it's just there's so much metaphysical truth in even what we say. Scared money don't make none, and
yes,
I mean, like you say, real recognize real, and all this. It's like you there's something there about a fundamental essence of life that for some reason we get twisted and don't really carry with us consciously.
and it's cultivating. It's
Mm.
it's it's like a muscle uh, that you've been flexing, so it's always there. It's just who you are. Your physical body, your mental body, your emotional body. That's just the vibe that you operate with, and people know it. They sense your energy. They feel your energy, and your consciousness is supporting that which they know. So that's ever increasing, right? Because we're just so huge. In my office, I like to use conscious things to help people get there. So I'm using photons of light, and I'm using sound and frequencies, and even chairs that actually help to rewire the nervous system to
Mm.
pull us out of those states of the dark night of the soul that our ancestors have been through, that we are carrying out in our genes. So some of the pain that we are looping around is the incompletion of our soul. We're here to grow our souls, not to be entertained, but to actually perpetuate change for the future. That's why we're here. And we've been given this opportunity, we've been given this great mission to be here to elevate and to make it better for the future. That's why we're here. And yet, some of us seem to have lost track of our true purpose. In India, they say it's the Dharma. That's what you're here for.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. To know your purpose is a real thing. I mean,
Yeah.
we hear all the time about the inscriptions and the temples in Kemet. Know thyself and all of this, and all the way up to when the golden age of hip hop was upon us. A huge part of what was being propagated before it was co-opted in the mainstream was knowledge of self.
Yes.
From
Yeah, that's
from
the
some
more
very powerful
accessible
teachers.
right there.
Yeah.
Standing on your own square.
Yes, yes.
I
We're talking.
myself
Go
am
ahead.
Lord Master. Islam.
I self Lord and Master. Yes, sir. We're talking with Dr. Mark Armstrong, the founder of the Ahimki. Is it pronounced Ahimki?
Ahimki Center.
Ahimki. I always
You close.
jack it up. The Ahimki Center for Wholeness. Uh, you mentioned a little while ago about your office, and I wanted to go there in terms of asking you to help us to understand what happens in your practice. Give us some stories that we can relate to in terms of the transformational work that you do. I know many family members, including myself, who have been in your presence and have seen your work. For the people who are not even familiar with it, people are still maybe they're into natural healing or not. Maybe it doesn't really matter.
Mhm.
Tell us a little bit more about your practice at the Ahimki Center.
Sure. At the center, the Ahimki Center, ahimsa is the sacredness of everything, and ki is energy in Japanese. The master that taught me acupuncture was 5 generations.
Mm,
So we did a lot of work together, ritual type work. So the needles are not just needles, they are actually instruments that have been elevated to actually work, because everything has a spirit. There's a soul to your liver, a soul to your kidneys, a soul to your heart. And the needles actually have a spirit connected to them, an ancestor. So when we do what we do, it's always with that purpose in mind. We're using some of the best technology in the world, old and ancient, like acupuncture is over 5,000 years old. But the Egyptians were using light, so we use lasers.
mm,
And, and we're excited about the DNA healing that can take place with the laser because
mm,
it's impacting that. But your question, Kofi, is very interesting to me. I've seen people come in that couldn't walk,
mm,
and at the end of 15 to 30 to 45 minutes, they're walking and they're feeling a lot better.
mm,
I've seen people that had stage 4 cancer, and the doctors wanted to take the breast, and just putting them on a lifestyle protocol of clean foods. I mean, healthy eating. You know, not so much being a vegan, but just eating plant based.
mm,
They change their life, and they no longer have those diseases, so-called uh, cancer. I like to say rogue cells. Don't give it any power. But
mm.
you really can heal your life. You really can. And some people have come and had miraculous healings. But the biggest thing I'm proud of is when we impact the generations. Like when they clean up the kitchen and get rid of some of the things in the cabinets, and the children no longer have ADD, ADHD. That's what I'm proud of. And when the parents are harmonized and getting along because they're no longer, feeding their family toxins, that their brain can calm down, that they could, have dinner together and spend time, with each other. That's what I'm most excited about.
I see. I see. And we can go deeper into that in terms of what happens to help them to get there. We're talking with Dr. Mark Armstrong of the Ahimki Center of Wholeness. This is the Ancestral Rock. You're lunching and learning with your brother Ross Kofi. We're here today just vibing up on this beautiful moon day. I'm actually looking outside at one of my favorite scenes. First of all, I love rain.
Yes.
I love rain. Rain just does something to me. It's beautiful. It takes me home, really, specifically even to Guyana,
Yes.
and etherically beyond that. What I mean? It's a very beautiful energy that Mama Nature provides for us. You
Yes.
know, and I'm at OU and Botanical Gardens right now, looking in one of my favorite places to come and just reflect. Because I can be here on this ancient but new technology on my Wi-Fi and everything, and then also I can turn that off and go outside and talk to the plants like Dr. George Washington Carver did.
Yes.
I know you from that neck of the woods, his neck of the woods. When we get back, I want to ask you to expound on a couple of things. I was thinking of this quote by Amilcar Cabral. Something you said really stood out, especially again in such a pregnant moment and in such a fertile moment as this right now. You mentioned anxiety
Hmm.
and some of those emotions and the thoughts that feed those things, and the energy, the information, and the very limited information that we receive and we process, which would lead to that kind of stuff, you know.
Mhm.
And that's true. That's true. Franz Fanon, I keep saying Franz Fanon. Amilcar Cabral said in uh, in Cuba in 1966, when the African peoples say in their simple language that, quote, no matter how hot the water from your well, it will not cook rice, they express with singular simplicity a fundamental principle, not only of physics but also of political science. We know that the development of a phenomenon in movement, whatever its external appearance, depends mainly on its internal characteristics. We also know that on the political level, our own reality, however fine and attractive the reality of others may be, can only be transformed by detailed knowledge of it, by our own efforts, by our own sacrifices. That's from Amilcar Cabral, you know, Pan Africanist, agricultural engineer, writer, um, and he was martyred on the 20th of January, 1973. When
Mm.
you hear those words, Dr. Armstrong, what do you think?
I think of like liberation of the mind, body, and spirit, because we're like a garden. And bless that great Baba for teaching us this, uh, and that we can purify our own selves and cleanse and irrigate our colons and prune and get rid of some of the things that no longer serve us. I just when you read that, I just thought he was speaking to me as a garden,
Mm,
and the garden of my mind, the garden of my digestive system, the garden of my lungs, my kidneys, my liver. I was thinking how poetic he is and what he left
yeah.
for us to do.
I see you left some serious work, and I really send that out to myself and all rebels with a cause. Let me put it
Yeah,
that way, because we
he
love
was
the.
certainly an engineer and a scientist.
I mean, seriously, seriously. We're gonna take a short break and tap in with another one of our ancestral healers, and come forward with Dr. Mark Armstrong. Stay tuned to yourself. Share the link. Share the live. We're live. Of course, this will live on your timelines on our YouTube channel and other places. It's always sweet to be able to tap in live and be in the moment. You know, we're here with Dr. Mark Armstrong. Stay tuned to yourself.
You know, I'm saying this because there is a tendency to believe that all these spiritual values are kind of spooky or mumbo jumbo. Sometimes I hear in the media about voodoo something, uh, and I wonder the person who uses this kind of word, does he really understand what he's talking about? And what I realize is that, sometimes the rejection or the downgrading of a reality is hiding the person's fear about truly understanding what that means. Because if we get to understand the true meaning, it will frighten. When Europe came to Africa, one of my elders said that it came looking for healing because it was already at odds with its own ancestors. And what happened is that following its tradition of separating with the ancestors, it missed the healing it came seeking, and instead proceeded in a systematic pillage of the whole continent. What it did not see, however, is a true source of African power, because that is invisible. And after having taken that which is visible, it has developed a propaganda that only portrays the continent as a place of all evil. You know, there is indeed an African saying that be careful when a naked person offers you a shirt. Uh, and there are indeed a lot of a lot of talk about aids, economic aid, assistance. But behind this assistance, we should wonder what is standing there. What naked person is offering a shirt to Africa? It is important, perhaps, that we realize that this can only be seen in a context in which we have reunited with our ancestors in a way that give no doubts about the source of our true power. And when you know that, you can also tell the true meaning of a gift that is coming from a person whose soul is starving and is dying right in front of you. See, the dollar bill is not symbol of abundance. It is in fact symbol of scarcity. If we're looking for abundance, we have to look at somewhere else. Then the dollar bill's starvation for abundance will seek our homes, because that's where it's going to find its ultimate fulfillment. And I know that if it is possible for tomorrow to become or to witness the fulfillment of this true African power, which I notice every time I go to my village, we are going to start here with something that feels like a spiritual exodus. And this exodus must take us into the depth of what constitutes true African rituals.
Mhm.
My mic is not on. You're tuned to your ancestral rock on your station for progressive information and happy quality music. And you're lunching and learning this afternoon with your brother Ross Kofi and our esteemed guest, Dr. Mark Armstrong. Just wanted to take us over to Burkina Faso for a minute, Baba, and hear the wisdom. It was actually in Slave Theater in Harlem,
Yes.
not in Harlem, in Brooklyn, where that took place, courtesy of the attorney of War Alton Maddox and Sister Karen Mason and others. But that's Baba Maladoma Some, teaching hard. You know, you took us to Alabama, and I want to go back to Alabama. I'm a country boy, so I like
Yes.
Alabama. Let's go back to Alabama. You
Yes.
mentioned something about how there were churches, there were Christian churches that you experienced
Mhm.
that were spiritual. And then you went to California and you saw religious churches. I
Mhm.
like to dig into that a little bit more. Not to, of course, not to beat up on anybody and their path and everything. It's just about really how we can get back home. Because
Mhm.
under the same cloak, in the same form, you were telling us that you experience, and many people can relate to this. You experience power,
Mhm.
and then you went somewhere else, and it wasn't that power was not harnessed
Mhm.
in the same way. Now you mentioned stuff. Let me just start with that.
Well, in in the South, with my grandfather, the church was not just the building. So people were outside, outdoors in nature. around trees and around water, around lakes. And they were invoking the spirit of water, which would be Obatala. And they were actually doing baptisms and head washings and rituals that I saw like in church, but in a pool. They were doing it real. And the feeling was real when it was in a setting that was kind of mimicking that. There was some essence lost and some authenticness lost to it. The words were different, but the results were very different in nature, very different. Like we practice qigong. Qi is energy and gong is movement. So we're outdoors practicing this ancient work. And when I work with people, my students that are training with me, we always invoke the ancestors. We set it in sacred circles, no pews, and we pour libations because that's what I saw work. When you venerate and pull in the spirit, then there's a lot of movement and a lot of healing. So we witnessed that, and so we're still incorporating that in what we call the soul constellation. I learned this from uh, God bless his soul, Baba Credo Mutwa,
Uh-huh.
where you set in circuit circles and you tell your story, and the energy moves you when people play out the story. It heals 9 generations in the past and 9 generations in the future. That's I'm very proud of because we have people that quit any kind of addictions just gone like that. The ancestors come through and you see exactly where it came from.
You just
And
said it heals 9 generations in the past and 9 generations in the future.
yes, that's what Credo said. And I've seen it work. The greatest healings that I've ever witnessed have been people being in a sacred circle telling their story.
What is it about the telling of the story that can bring forth such healing?
Oftentimes, we're never really heard and we're never really fully understood. When you talk and tell someone your pain, there's this dynamic of cutting you off and defending their position. When you are able to express and a person receive your story without judging you, healing takes place. It's amazing. And then we have people play out those characters in the story. And then you have a whole nother picture of what's going on.
When you say play out the characters, what do you mean?
Okay, when I was born, um, my biological father was military. So he came back with a lot of PTSD, post traumatic stress. So he could wake up at night and hear a gunshot in Compton and just immediately, whoever's next to him, he's fight and flight.
Mm-hmm.
So my mom was like, this man's going to kill me.
Mm-hmm.
And all that energy would in her as fear. So that's why we went to California.
Mm-hmm.
And then she remarried, and the sins of the father visit the child. Like I turned out that way,
Mm-hmm.
always on edge,
Mm-hmm.
very, very volatile.
Yeah, when I see your face, not to cut you, I see somebody that I can. You would have been a problem back in the days.
Oh yeah, yeah. I was that guy. I'm not the one because it's like to death. That's how I felt.
Right, 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 right.
It's that kind of militaristic.
Mm-hmm.
I'm here to save myself so I can get home to my family.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I thought when I played sports.
Mm-hmm.
I'm here to win. There's no excuse. We win. That kind of drive is something that is unhealthy at times, but you can use it to your advantage if you understand how to control yourself. But sometimes it's really out of control. And in the soul constellation, I found out where that came from. And then I saw that I could let it go.
I see.
That's the power of the ancestors working through us. We all have these pictures in our mind, these perceptions. This perception is actually mimicking our behavior, and it's also creating a biology.
Mm-hmm.
and that we can rewrite. When we can just like you could rewrite a story on your software, you could rewrite your story of your life in 40 minutes.
And effectively, right? I mean, so
Effectively change.
I'm asking this question, for obvious reason, because well, I don't know how obvious it is. I'm asking the question because I'm attempting. We don't have the phone lines open up, and I'm feeling some even audience questions right now.
Yes.
So, how does one know that it's effective? Because so much has been said to us about how we just kind of fool ourselves, and we just kind of make ourselves, that's it's escapism and everything. And you're saying that in 40 minutes one can actually rewrite one's story. What does that mean? Rewrite one's story. Like what does that mean? Because you've already experienced these things. I've already been shot at by the police and thrown in jail and slammed on the corner,
Mhm.
by the police and all these things. How am I going to rewrite that?
Yes. Well, you're rewriting your consciousness about it. The experience that you had, you can't say that you didn't have that. We're not saying you discount that experience. But the way you perceived it, you can actually go back in time and recreate another outcome. And you can do that in the soul constellation like that.
But that's not keeping it real though, Dr. Mark. I'm saying this
Mhm,
this 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 cop assaulted me,
mhm.
and you're saying that I could possibly go back and see the cop as a great person or a person
Oh
who
no,
came
no,
in.
I'm not saying see him as great. I'm just saying you have the ability, especially in the soul constellation setting where there are so many people telling the story that you said you had that would be different outcome once you saw that played out.
Mm.
Okay, so, you know, the playing out is what happens to the cops in the future. What happened to you and all the people witnessing it. All that is a big montage, and if you saw that, your story would be very different. Of you, not of the experience, of you. Very different. And I invite you to do a soul constellation because it's sort of like how does a how does a watermelon taste? Well, you have to taste the water. I can't tell you. It's sweet and it's
Right.
it's cool and it's fulfilling and it makes me feel a sense of like hungry, not hungry but complete. That's not it. You have to experience it for yourself.
So tell us a little bit more about the soul constellation, please.
The soul constellation has these tendons. One of them is called orders of love. That when you put orders of love in alignment, energy flows. The second tenet is hidden loyalties. You could be loyal to your pain. You could be loyal to your struggle. The second is we belong. And that belonging is so important that once you reclaim that sense of belonging, like we do exist and belong just where we are, there's power when you know you belong. You know, and so when we practice these principles of soul constellation, then we operate at a different level because every moment we can transform our lives.
So you said the first one is loyalty,
Yeah, is hidden loyalties.
hidden loyalties, hidden loyalties.
Be loyal to pain. You could be loyal to trauma,
Mm. Mm.
and so the other,
And then the other one was we belong.
yeah, we belong. Belonging is important,
Mm.
and acknowledging that you belong.
So this constellation, I'm just attempting. I'm a visual person. So this is like a meditation or a self analysis that one goes through using certain prompts?
Well, it's actually a little different than that. Uh, the constellation is set up where there's a circle of people that want to do work, and the facilitator is the helper.
Mm,
So there is no psychotherapist. There is no, person really doing it. Everyone is doing it. The spirit is in doing it.
mm,
So once you tell your story, then you ask people to play those parts of your story,
mm,
because your story has a cop, it has you, it has circumstances, it has other people in it, witnesses, and then you simply sit down and watch the constellation because the energy will move it and change the story. Now, the story is deeper than what you think because there are people playing your ancestors,
mm, 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 mm,
and it goes back 9 generations. They're
mhm,
playing the cop's ancestors,
mhm,
9 generations.
mm. So I can imagine how that definitely shifts one's perspective.
When you see everything changing, that's when that energy changes so it doesn't happen again.
Right. And that's the most. I think that's would be the most compelling part for someone who has been indoctrinated by the injected scripts, as Baba Wakesa and the family say. You know, the injected scripts of oppression.
Hmm.
The fact that, okay, well, after going through this is just not just some kind of get high for a minute kind of vibe or something. You know, I'm just escape from reality. This
Yes,
actually shifts.
it does.
This actually shifts the trajectory.
Yes. And when you apply the same principle to dis-ease,
Hmm.
and you look at it from an epigenetic standpoint of 9 generations of people playing that out,
Hmm.
the power of whatever the disease is gone,
Hmm.
and you've established orders of love. One of the things that is important is that in the belonging, parents give and children take, and that's so important to understand that parents are giving wisdom and knowledge, and the children have to be in an environment where they can take that on, not play with iPads all day, not turn to the internet for stimulation.
Hmm.
Like, I had real giving and taking from my grandfather and my parents, and I
Hmm.
wanted to be around that even to the end because the wisdom was so beautiful, and I can apply that in my life, and that elevates you, right? We're just standing on the shoulders of the great ones that came before us, and that's what we got to do. We have to model that
Hmm.
and teach that and put people in situations so that they can know that, and liberation is just natural occurring.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's just natural.
It all just it's our it is the true reality, and other stuff is, if you want to call it, an interruption or a distraction. You know.
Exactly.
So, for instance, you know, I speak about this all the time. Those of y'all who tune in regular, you might, you might possibly just be annoyed by me repeating this story all the time. But here we go again. On the farm, the whole principle of the plant positive approach instead of the pest negative approach, dealing with a very practical issue of how do we keep our vegetables strong enough so that we can benefit from them, you know,
Mhm.
without pest pressure and everything. So oftentimes, even in a holistic setting, I'll go and get the natural, the organic fertilizer,
Mhm.
the organic pest control or the this and that. However, the plant positive approach is focusing on the reality that you're talking about. That our default setting is what the doctors would call homeostasis. You know,
Yes.
it's our default. That's like our birthright.
Mhm.
And then along the way, we forget. You know, just like you come here and right before you're born, in some cultures they say you forget your whole mission and your whole life is about remembering that, however you want to slice it, our default setting is peace, joy, and power. It's health, and and the cabbage has the DNA to be a very strong and a vibrant and nutritious and beautiful plant.
Yes.
So if we focus on that reality, we find that the pest control doesn't become so necessary, because if we focus on that reality, then by default we will be feeding it what it needs according to its nature. We'll be giving it the other type of care that it needs according to its nature. You know what I mean? All
Yeah.
these things. And so when something is able to flourish in its nature, then, as you were saying, in another way. I mean, that's at least that's my interpretation. Did I miss you by a country mile, or?
No, you are definitely hit the bullseye. That's the beautiful thing of the soul constellation, is that it is connected to the stars and to the universe and to the orders of love that exist in the planet. You're just tapped in, tuned in to the signal, so it flows. And there is no distraction. Once you know the truth, you got it.
We're speaking with Baba Mark Armstrong of Ahimki
Yeah.
Wellness. Before we go any further, Baba, please give us some information. I'm writing these notes here about the soul constellation, so
Yes.
I'm gonna post them. But just give us some information about how the family can get in touch with your center, your
Yes.
phone number, and all that kind of stuff.
Well, our address is Ahimki, AHIMKI.net. So you can reach us there, and my number is 770-552-4242. 770-552-4242. And we're there to serve and to help. We offer classes. We teach these principles of healing in qigong. It's medical qigong, so we're actually helping you heal your life.
Mm-hmm.
So you learn, like this Wednesday is it's Chinese New Year's, so it's the year of the snake. So it's wisdom, it's mysticism, it's grounding, and it's flexibility.
Shedding too, right?
It's shedding, yes. Letting go.
That's interesting that correlates with the 9 year in the Gregorian calendar, the 2025, and
Yes.
so many roads are coming together, are intersecting in this space and time.
Yeah, we're excited about the Qigong. We've actually have been working on the chakra systems,
Mm-hmm.
helping people heal the root chakra, heal, the money, the creativity, the trust issues, the heart, the speaking of your truth, seeing it, and then acknowledging it. So we've been helping through the classes, people elevating and tuning in and staying resonant with the chakra, staying in balance with the energy.
I see. Dr. Mark Armstrong is on the phone with it. Dr. Mark, let's take it to the pressure test now. You're an athlete. You
Yeah.
know what that 2 minute drill is like.
Yes.
I wanna throw some concepts out to you, some often repeated theories,
Okay.
and get your take on them, especially as it relates to the medical field.
Mhm.
Someone said, please repeat the number. Please repeat the number. That's good.
770
770
552
552
4242. 4242.
4242. Dr. Mark. I'm multitasking in real time and laughing to myself about what you said about what the conscious mind, how many tasks the conscious mind can hold versus the subconscious. I'm I'm trying to prove you wrong and it ain't working.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yes, I. So, Dr. Mark, one question. One
Yes.
popularly thing, this COVID thing was a real game changer. I saw a lot of consciousness rise,
Yes.
albeit some of it based on fear and ignorance, albeit some of it based on, There are a lot of fear, a lot of ignorance,
Yeah.
Also, on the other side, a lot of eye opening, like light bulb going off and remembering the things that all of these people before us, like we mentioned, have been saying to us. I mentioned Dr. Laila Africa, is his birthday today.
Yes.
Much love to that great healer, servant of our people. So one thing is a popularly held belief is that the COVID is not real. Like COVID is not real. How do you respond to that?
The belief system that was created generated a lot of money for pharmaceutical companies. And that created within the culture, that created a conflict for some people that were conscious. And now we're seeing the aftermath of whatever people chose, whether they did the jab or whether they didn't do it. Their consciousness is what they're realizing. I'm seeing in the clinic people that are now called long haulers. They
Mm,
never had respiratory issues. They never had blood clots. They certainly didn't have heart conditions. They were runners, marathon walkers. They were athletes.
mm,
And I've seen what was up turned down as a result of their decision to get the jab. So, in my opinion, the people that I work with, I didn't get the jab, and I just told them what I would do for me, and I left it up to them. And some people listened. I lost my Facebook page because I was educating people,
mm.
and they took me off.
So, on a follow up to that, there are many people who feel like it's irresponsible for anyone to share what they call this misinformation. There's like a civil war going on between the Fauciists
Yeah.
and the people like the I would say the Sabiists. You know what I mean? And
Yes.
it's like it's just and I know so many people in our community, very well meaning people, very, powerful people in their own right. Their work speaks for itself. That for some reason, when it comes to things like our medical reality, which I can understand, my thought process is, it's a very tender subject, when your body, when you feel like you had lost control of your body and all that, it's like the white man ice suddenly become colder, you know.
Yes. Yes.
It is just so it's just like even when you what I'm getting at is the way, okay, let's just say for instance, hypothetically, I see something that Dr. Mark has posted. And so I'm going to go and fact check it. I'm going to Google and where am I going? What's going to be the sources that's going to either refute or justify his claim?
Mhm.
What's the chances that I'm going to be getting balanced sources even when I go and do the responsible thing? I'm not even so-called the responsible thing and check. Check for yourselves. Look for yourself.
Mhm.
Any great teacher will tell you that, right?
Right.
Take what I'm saying with a grain of salt. Check it
Check
out for
it out.
yourself.
Check it for yourself.
But
Yes.
even when I'm going through that process, I'm logging. Here it is, 1:53 in the afternoon. Let me see what Dr. Mark talking about. Just hear this information. I'm gonna click on this, and then I'm gonna see. This information is saying that broccoli is not good for you. Carrots will actually mess up your eyes, and the worst thing one can do for one's body is to grow food in the urban environment because of all the environmental toxins. I just made up something, just
Yes.
so then I'm going now. My next step is to go and check for this, fact check,
Hmm.
and I'm getting an article from the University of Missouri, an article from Johns Hopkins, an article. I may get one article over here that says something has some of the keywords in it that Queen Afua said something or Mark Armstrong said something the other day. So what I'm getting at is I can understand how it can be very overwhelming if we don't have our independent, sovereign, really is the best word, system
Mm-hmm.
of receiving knowledge.
Yes.
So I'm about to ask you the $1,000,000 question. With all of that being said, what would you say? What would you prescribe as some basic steps to returning to that sovereign source? Because I know there is one. It's not like it's just gone somewhere.
Well, I love nature. I love mimicking whatever the universe made is the most important medicine you need. Anything you can't pronounce, I wouldn't take it. If you could find truth inside of your cells that mimic nature, let's do that. Now, if you break a bone, you need to have it set. If you need to find some reason why you have these symptoms, get the diagnostic checkup. Then you'll know. But don't stop once you know. You got to do something. And you got to do something for your health because ants are building homes, birds are building nests. Everybody in the universe is doing something for themselves.
But the Son of Man has no place to sleep.
That's right.
Goodness.
That's
Lord
right.
mercy.
So don't forget the most important thing. We think that medicine has a monopoly on truth, and it doesn't. Truth inside of you has the wisdom of everything. So let's just tune in, let's check in, and let's weigh and measure based upon your life experience, your cultural connection to truth.
Another one I want to throw out to you there, Dr. Armstrong. Um, and this is real. Like these, no, I'm not making any of these things up. These are popularly held beliefs. Capitalism, patriarchy, what was misnomered white terror, white supremacy, we call white terror. All these systems, colonialism, neo-colonialism, are so toxic in themselves that regardless of if I decide to eat well or eat what is prescribed to me as well, I'm living in a toxic environment, so I might as well just eat and be happy because happiness is a big part of my immunity.
So, the toxic world that you live in, you're in the world, but not of the world. And because you're not of the world, you know where you're from. So, you do the things that keep you well. That's why I like the soul constellation work because once you understand you belong, then you're never disconnected from the truth. You can't be. I mean, if 1,000 people just walked around and said, here's the best cocaine in the world, just do this and you'll live, all of your listeners, even though they may partake, would not be doing cocaine the rest of their life every day. That just makes no sense. So, truth is in us. We know it. And we just got to act on it. Yeah, in this toxic environment, what's toxic? Inside your home, you could put the really good air, and within your space, you can make the best possible environment to grow inside your house and outside of your house. It will be better than the supermarket. I guarantee you that. And you can do that for yourself because your prayers, your connection to earth and the ground that you're eating from is so conscious that it will protect you.
Dr. Mark Armstrong. Uh, Another one, it's very much related to the previous one. Look, Negro, I know a lot of sick vegans. There's more sick vegans than I know than people that smoke crack and eat pork. So again, it don't seem to be all about the food that you eat that makes you healthy and ability to thrive.
Right. It comes down to, food is important. That's our medicine. But certainly your consciousness about the food and about what you're doing when you digest the food. I mean, you can chew the food a little more thoroughly. You're going to get a little nutrition. You can certainly take some supplements to support what you're missing in your diet. But the biggest thing is, being connected to spirit. Because I've seen people that don't have a diet, they eat whatever they want, and yet they don't have any health issues. There was a guy on TV this morning I watched, he's 102 years old, and he said he never really cared about what he eats. All he does is practice being positive. That's it. His secret to 102 was he acknowledges and he appreciates. That's it. He said, that's it. Whatever happens, I just give thanks, whether it's good or bad, because I'm going to learn how to overcome it. And I just appreciate the challenges because I'll get over it. Even at 102, he goes, every day is a challenge. But I acknowledge and I appreciate that I'm here and I'm excited about the next day. I say be excited about now and just work on the now. I'm really excited to be here with you. And that takes care of itself. The next moment will unfold.
True.
If we can get present time with what's going on and tune into that wisdom, the universe is guiding you and every single cell. The melanin inside of your body is worth $42 per ounce. And we got 70 trillion cells. Some of us weigh more than 100 pounds. So we're rich. We're billionaires. Just the melanin inside of you. How do we access that consciousness?
Hmm.
We do.
And how does someone put a dollar value on that? That's interesting. I've never heard that.
NASA said that in the 70s, the kidneys would be worth this, the liver, the eyes would be worth this. And they calculated through carbon dating how much, you know, that would be on a periodic table. Every element is inside of our body is on that periodic table. And NASA said that the body would be $6 million man. Scientific.
Mm-hmm.
But they never accounted for the melanin.
Right, right, right. And that begs the question for real, in a real sense. Like, well, how do I cash in on this?
Yeah, well, it's consciousness, right? I mean, certainly we're creative individuals. We're launching rockets of desire. And if we could just stay tapped in, tuned into the signal WGLD, we'll invent something that will get us out of here. The best car has not been invented. The best tire is not invented. The best electrical system is not. The best farming system is not. We're waiting on you. The best plant growing recipes are not invented. They may come from copper in the ground. It may come from a biocharger or frequency donating energy into it to purify the land. The best ideas are in you. And that's what we got to get to. Not the red, white, and blue, but we got to get to you. Listeners, we got to get to you. During that time when I was working with people, I was using Rife machine, frequency generator. And we took the magnetic strip on the credit card machine and we programmed the credit card machines. True story. True story. Money just showed up. Credit scores went up. We hacked the system. Consciousness. You're thinking a thought, but when you align that thought with others, then you change the frequency of reality. Now that's
That's why they say the voice of the people is the voice of God.
exactly. That is true.
I was watching this thing today. I wish I could pull it up for the family. I don't know where
Oh,
it
that
is,
would be
but
great.
it was a picture there was one man standing in a circle. And there's a whole crowd around, like thousands of people. And the quote was like coming from this man was like, "Yes, you're all wrong."
Yeah. And especially if all those people knew it,
Right. That thing
then
tickled me
then
because
the reality changes. The
it
reality
shift in a heartbeat.
just
So
like
then,
that.
so then Marcus Garvey, when he said that we can shift the reality in 24 hours, that's all it would take. Was not just talking in some kind of, some hyperbole or some kind of, pipe dream.
Yeah, we certainly have the power, and we did that using frequency generators. I had one, and most of the people on the call had one, and we just changed the reality just like that. My credit score is now in the 800s. So we proved it.
Great.
And they were losing their house and they were up for auction on the city courthouse, and that changed too.
So I'm going to get back to the pressure test because you're dropping so many jewels, Bubba, and I want to respect your time. I know you're taking time to be with us today. I really appreciate it. Family,
Thank
we're tuned in with Dr. Mark Armstrong of Ahimki. Ahimki. I got it. I finally got it.
you. Got it.
I'll be trying to find it on Google all the time. Like, is it an AK? Let me just say Dr. Armstrong. What comes up?
You got it.
Ahimki. So, one of the things that is often said in terms of when we are moving into a new phase is that you got to remove what no longer serves you. You got to leave all of that behind and take on a new vessel. Dr. King said, we just celebrated him the other day.
Yeah.
America, you must be born again, and all this kind of stuff.
Hmm.
Now, when it relates to the human body, again, the physical anatomy and those things that we have been taught to be the laws of nature, the physical laws of nature. I was listening to Dr. Charles Finch the other day talking about the fact that he just said straight up, modern physics has run into a brick wall of their own doing.
Hmm.
So I'm asking probably the same question in a different way because you've already said, well, let's get back to nature. And I want to keep asking this question. It's come to my spirit again in terms of what that looks like. Where can we, with the people of the world, do a self test to find a verifiable source of authority? If all of these systems that have been presented to us as like this is the truth are now they're all being interrogated. And
Hmm.
then some people might have, that might be the spark that something. I knew something. I knew I wasn't feeling something about this.
Hmm.
Give us a little bit more in terms of what we can do starting this afternoon to implement, to start this reprogramming of the narrative, to really truly find the truth of the matter.
Well, it starts with cleaning our gardens. It starts with hydration, making sure that you have enough hydration to flush the toxins out, because we receive some toxins in our consciousness to get rid of some of the parasites. So we need to do a parasite cleanse, some wormwood, things like that, pumpkin seeds. So we're cleansing the body to get it ready for new awareness. Then we need to work on our consciousness and our subconscious mind. So we'll hold on to principles that are really aligned with the universe. And then you begin to build, you begin to repattern the adult child. You begin to really begin to do your own investigation. Everyone is wanting to know the truth, and you can know your truth. It starts in a self journey, not looking to others,
Mm.
going within. And then you'll build mediations of units that are strong enough to attach you to the next unit, and you'll build your own reality of truth. You'll find others that are partnered and aligned, And that is why we're here in Earth. You know, we're aligning ourselves with consciousness that resonates. Then once you do that, you'll begin to mastermind and build. Because once you mastermind, in the mastermind process of working together with conscious, people that are thinking like you, moving the same direction, that's when magic can happen.
Straight up.
Yep.
You're listening to Dr. Mark Armstrong. So what y'all just got was at least a $20,000 master class. And all you have to do is show up. The currency is your presence. Your
Yes.
presence is the present. We give thanks.
Yeah.
Dr.
As a matter of fact, this class right here would be worth, in landmark form, it would be worth $1,500 for this hour,
Definitely.
because they would teach you in reinforcement training that you got to do something to realize your gift. And then that next class would be $40,000.
Mm-hmm.
It would only take 20 of you. And that 20 would be billionaires, especially if you do it. What
Plain and
Brother
simple.
Coffee's putting out, if you did a fraction of it, your life would change.
There's so many questions in my mind, Dr. Mark. So I want to just pause right here and just ask you to come back with us at some point.
Sure.
We got to do this a little bit more regularly, because
Yeah, I would love to offer for your audience a soul constellation, uh, and to physically do the work and support them in their journey of consciousness.
beautiful, beautiful. So let me go back to the soul constellation. I have some notes up here. Want you to correct me and see if I need to put more of this. So what I got so far is hidden loyalties
Uh-huh.
and the belonging, or we belong.
Yes,
Those are elements of the soul constellation.
yes. Uh, and orders of love,
Mm-hmm.
that's important.
Orders of love.
Yes.
What do you mean by that?
Like whoever is first is first. Our ancestors are important, so they need to be acknowledged for energy to flow.
Mm-hmm.
We have to acknowledge our mothers and our fathers, even in their brokenness and in their strength. And that we don't push anyone out. So if some family has a mental illness, we don't put them in a closet and never talk about them. Orders of love is whoever's oldest is given the position of respect because they're older, not the babies running the house. When that happens, there's always resentment. And I see this in families where the older children move out and the baby is still there, and the younger one knows all the business of the family, and the other ones have resentment because no one respected orders of love, which is just letting this is what we're doing for our father. This is how we're taking care of him. We want you to know so that you know that if anything happens, you were part of it. You knew. This is how energy flows best for a community. We belong to a bigger consciousness. So we're born into a family with a religion. We're born into a family with an ethnicity. We're born into a family with traditional political, social, economic positions. And we can't get away from that. We try, but we really can't until we understand that we belong. And then once you do, it opens it all up for appreciation. And this is teaching from Credo Mutua. Uh, you know, first flight, got to get along with the second. All that is how the energy flows best for the children. And once we put that in place, then energy flows. It really flows.
Yes, indeed. Credo Mutua is a special elder, special being.
Yeah, he wrote a lot of
Special.
books, and he was an artist and a spiritual leader, and people from all over the world would sit down and have, meetings with him. He could tell you the cosmology of the universe
Mm-hmm.
in an evening. I mean, his dictations would start at 5 and went in until 4 in the morning, and he
right,
would
right,
still be going.
right, right. One of the stories I heard secondhand, I didn't hear it from his mouth directly, was about the warrior Maui.
Yes,
And this whole journey that the warrior Maui reportedly originated um, in what you call it, in South Africa, in Azania.
yes. Charlotte Caldwell, Ashe.
And migrated up the west. I want to say, I don't know, that's the part I get mixed up. It was the east or the west coast of Africa. Walk, this is all a land migration until they got to a point where they got on the boat and ended up in what is now called Hawaii. This is the long story made very short. But that part of that story, so the warrior Maui was someone from Baba Creator Mutwa's account. It was as an African, that founded the islands that we now know as Hawaii.
Yes,
But what was so important about that story for me is that when he was talking about how, in the rites of passage of those first people that established Hawaii and everything, and how they kept that culture for so long, part of the rite of passage was that they were able to chant the name of their ancestors for 2,000 years.
yes.
Like I'm the son of this, who's the mother of, and she's the daughter of she, and she's the daughter of, and she's the,
They kept it alive. The legacy.
2,000 years,
Yes.
2,000 years. And I just imagine what kind of person, what kind of consciousness one would walk in on this earth. When you're talking about really knowing yourself, back to the police in Compton, they
Hmm.
pull somebody over that knows the reality, they back off. They
Oh yeah.
understand that this is not somebody to be played with. But
Yeah.
what just, and that's just one little small thing. Police in Compton ain't no such powerful force as it relates to the universal, creator. It's just that's the kind of energy that's terrorized, that we have allowed to terrorize us forever. But I'm
Mhm.
just saying, like, imagine you walk in this earth with the knowledge of, and that don't cost you one thing. This is nothing that even costs one dime of, of a monetary investment, unless you
Nothing.
just have to roll down to the library or roll down to the archives or something. The bus fare. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
But imagine the power that one walks this earth with, knowing the names of your ancestors for the last 2,000 years.
In the soul constellation work, they come through and they tell you. They tell you. They actually want you to know.
They do. They absolutely do. As was said in one of those movies, for in this moment I am the only reason they ever existed.
Yes.
And we could take that as arrogance, or we could take that as a great honor.
It's a great honor, is how I heard that.
You know, as a great honor, and we're like, wow, you see, you put all of this in me,
Hmm.
little old me.
Yeah, that melanin that you got is expensive. It's another reality.
It's serious thing. Dr. Mark, we could be here all day. I thank you so much for joining us. I want to ask you to give us your information one more time, and
Sure.
I'm definitely looking forward to getting you back on and continuing this journey. There's just so much to talk
Uh,
about, and we really appreciate your clear wisdom, and your love for yourself, obviously, and your people is apparent. So we're thankful for how you show up. Thank you, Mama and your Baba.
thank you. Thank you. My number is 770-552-4242, 770-552-4242, and I'm at Ahimki, Ahimki .net, Ahimki.net. And I want to thank you, Kofi, for this opportunity to get me out of the little box of the day-to-day uh, one-on-one that I
Great.
spend a lot of time helping people. I realize through this opportunity there's more people in the world than in Roswell, Georgia. Thank you for expanding the word and and working together with other conscious people to reprogram ourselves.
Indeed. Thank you so much for being who you are, Baba, and we're looking forward to getting you on again. People
Yeah.
say they want to hear you again. We're gonna make sure that that happens. And I'm looking forward to taking some of these nature walks with you. Maybe we can invite the family to come along with a
Oh, I
nature
would love
walk.
that. Yeah,
You
just
know,
being out in nature.
just being out in nature and just. I always remember Dr. Kweku Ando as we let you go, Dr. Ando.
Hondo, yes.
We sponsored a couple nature walks with him, and it always it's still amazing to me that the first one we did at Cascade Nature Preserve. Of course, we all met in the. You're familiar with Cascade, right?
Yes.
We all met in the parking lot. Let me tell you something. Dr. Ando taught for 3 hours, and we did not even walk outside of the parking lot. We just spoke. The whole plan was to walk through,
Yeah.
And I'm just not. He wasn't just kind of just. He was like, and this is and this and
Yeah,
this and this
ethnobotanist, huh? You're brilliant.
and all have a story. All these herbs have a story.
Yes.
As you said, the needles, everything have a spirit.
Everything.
Sometimes we get spooked out when we hear that word. It's just an animation, or whatever you want to call it. It's an
Yeah.
animated energy. I mean, we know this,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
So yeah, I mean that Popeye sandwich had a spirit. That's what happened. That was all over the place right before COVID hit. And you
Yeah.
went and bought that, and that wasn't a person. So yeah, everything got a spirit.
Yes.
Everything has an energy attached to it. So thank you, Baba, for joining us this afternoon. And we're looking forward to talking with you again on the
Thank you, Papa
Ancestral Rock.
Coffee. Appreciate you as well.
And much love.
Much love.
Family, y'all take care of each other. Take care of yourself. This has been a wonderful opportunity to get with Dr. Mark Armstrong, just to get with ourselves, really, through Dr. Mark Armstrong, who is a master teacher. His work, of course, is very well known by many of us in the community. And for those of us who don't know, maybe this is an opportunity. I want to thank those of y'all for joining us today who've joined us on the lives, on the YouTube, Facebook. I see a few of y'all on here, and please continue to share the link, share the video, and let our people be enlightened. We are in a time which is a very fertile time. Many people 4 or 5 months ago, even 2, 3 months ago, were under a lot of stress because of the political implication of regime change and all that. And regardless of where you are or what side of the aisle and all that kind of stuff, what has become very obvious is that, after the calm, there's a storm. After the storm, there's a calm too. And so the discourse I'm seeing in my timeline, in the social media streets, 2:22 in the afternoon, is that, well, do for self, do for self, do for self, and that's nothing new, right? Our mothers and fathers taught us that before. Thank you for Dr. Mark Armstrong giving us some practical examples of that. The medicine making, the laying on of hands, the clear expression of the word from people who are conscious of who they are, the loving of one another, the creation of our white lightning and our medicines and our, he's talking about his mother in Alabama or his grandmother in Alabama who used to sew for her daughter every week, sew a new dress for her daughter every week. Just some basic stuff, you know what I'm saying? I always think of Nana John Henry Clark, who would say, it's just, we're talking about revolution and we should be talking about revolution. Dr. Clark, as he always would say, and I repeat it all the time on my program, almost like it's part of the opening. I must bear witness to this as a reminder to myself and to our audience that if it's not for the sake of African liberation, this should be thrown in the trash can of its history, But he was like, we talk about taking over nations and everything. How many people can make a toothbrush or create an elevator, or manufacture some socks, building blocks. We can start with these things. We can start, and we can start right now. It's springtime is soon coming, so this is just my shameless plug as just an advocate for Asaseya, Mama Earth, the IA, whatever you want to call her. It's definitely a her. It's a nurturing motherly energy. In the northern hemisphere now, we are in the midst of winter. We have until March, the end of March, for spring. However, part of the responsible winter behavior is gathering our goods for the spring, so that when springtime comes, that soil is packing a punch. That soil is really giving us some resplendent um, harvest, some resplendent rewards in terms of, like they say, when you tickle the hoe, you tickle the earth with a hoe, she responds with a harvest. So now, using the leaves that have fallen from the trees in the fall, and most of them fell maybe 2 months ago now in Atlanta, because the whole climate shift and everything. But it finally got cold enough where most of the leaves are on the ground now. So many places you can walk and you just hearing the crunch. So what does this mean? This means that this is actually something that is a natural resource that can really be very beneficial in helping us to build up our soil so that we can plant our geranium, our onions, our tomatoes, our peppers, our daffodils, whether it's the herbs, the peppermint, and the different types of mint and lemongrass, whatever it is that you like, whatever it is that makes your soul happy, even if it's just you get 2 or 3 of them a week off of your little plant or your little vine. This is what it's time to do right now. Let's prepare. Let's meditate on preparing our soil, and let's just accept this as an unspoken challenge. We can check in with each other if we need to, but as Dr. Mark was saying, and we say often, you just take it all with a grain of salt and do the test for yourself. If you decide to spend some time to invest in yourself and reflect on what it is you truly desire, and you say think, take a deep breath and just reflect on what it is you truly desire to grow this year. The Creator is giving you something within that reflection. And then we can narrow it down and set out the plan and make it practical. But once you write those things down, however you want your garden to be, and I'm talking about, let's say right here, we're at OU and we're inside Queen Yen's den. We're right now. Thank you, Queen Yen, for letting us use the space. So it could be in the windowsill like this, or it could be outside, or it could be on the balcony. It could be wherever there's light, But what I'm saying is, once you reflect on what it is you want to grow this year, I guarantee you that something will happen. You will see the synchronicity in things coming in your way, in resources coming in your path, through a text message or through something you even see online when you're scrolling, through a hunch, through a dream, through a phone call. Girl, I have such and such last year, and I was just thinking maybe you would want to have some of this too. Just starting with reflection of what it is you desire to grow. It's very important that we grow our own food again, like our people used to. We don't have to wait around for anybody to come, save us from anywhere, much less from the sky. We can grow our own food. We can feed ourselves. We can love each other. We can be loved. We can build secure places, secure spaces, not just like some kind of militarily secure, emotionally secure, spiritually secure. We can do this. We can develop again the gross domestic happiness, like Baba Rashid always talk about. Much love to y'all. Thank y'all for joining us. Thank you all for those who tuned in. Greetings to Mama Linda. Bless up, Mama Linda. Yeah, Amira. And those of you, Pastor Charlotte, all of you who I see here on the Facebook feed, and those of you joining us on the website on BobFest, ATL, also on our YouTube, and of course, tuned in to WRFG Radio. Much love.